So today some interesting things happened. We had a cathedral that had been lit by candle for over 100 years burned to the ground. At a time when Macron's about to be overthrown by the French people, at a time when Israel is desperately trying to get people behind it in its expansive campaign in the Middle East, at a time when Israel just forced the issue on the Golan Heights, despite having lost the proxy war via ISIS with Assad. There are some interesting things going on, and I think the American public needs to know and understand how the Jews divided and conquered Lebanon. I'll get into how this ties into what's going on in New Zealand and France later. In the 1970s and the 1980s, Jewish terrorists provided weapons and training to both sides of the conflict in Lebanon, which they created. They armed the Christian and the Muslim militias, and they especially false flagged pretending to be Christian militias that went in to Lebanon and then killed Muslims and vice versa. And when there was a lull in the attacks between the Christians and the Muslims for the 18-year civil war in Lebanon, which the Israelis occupied Lebanon during those 18 years trying to steal land, they would then fill in the lull in the violence with a terrorist attack that was a Jew pretending to be a Christian or pretending to be a Muslim against the Muslims or Christians respectively. Fast forward to today. Those who are most concerned about white genocide in Europe and the former colonies, if they've done their homework, and the people who are behind white genocide, it's obvious to the people. They wouldn't target Muslims. They would not target Muslims. Think about that long and hard. They would not be targeting Muslims. So, yeah, Fadi says in Lebanon the Jews attacked the Lebanese and the Palestinians in the internment camps. Yes, I agree. There were two prime ministers that committed genocides in Lebanon, going into refugee camps and killing women and children indiscriminately. But the point that I'm making here is that Israel needs the Goyim to fight. The Jews, the Zionists, the bankers, the cultural Marxists, what have you. For the Jews to stay in power, given the amount of Jew naming going on now, they need a war. They need conflict. They need civil strife. And the way that Israel was able to take over its neighbors and expand in 1948 and again in 1967, then again in the 70s in that war, the Yom Kippur War, Israel takes land, it steals lands, it expands. And the way it does this without losing it long term is by causing infighting in the neighboring countries. Iraq had something to say about this, and then Iraq was torn apart by sectarian violence, where the Saudis, front of the Jews, of the Israelis, were provided all sorts of weapons to the Sunnis, who were outnumbered by the Shia, and then the Shia militias were egged on, and the Sunnis and the Muslims, the Sunnis and the Shias were slugging it out in Iraq, and the Israelis were trying to draw Iran into it so America would engage Iran. Same thing happened with ISIS in Syria. The point I'm making here is pay very close attention to what happened in Paris today. I was very busy. I had to do my GI Bill stuff today. I'm your first ever homeless candidate. I'm on a boat now. I'll be on an RV this summer. I'm your first ever presidential candidate that's homeless. But pay very special attention, because if it winds up being a Muslim useful idiot or a Jew pretending to be a Muslim, or if they just have a fall guy that's a Muslim, this is exactly what the Jews need. They want the attention taken off from the Jew bankers that are ruining France and making sure the floodgates stayed open. They need the attention focused on the symptoms of Jewish power, not on the replacers, but the replacements. If you look at the New Zealand thing, the guy vacationed in Israel right before the attack and made a bunch of money, we're told, off from BitConnect, which is like almost like a joke because BitConnect was a huge bubble that screwed most of its investors. The guy in New Zealand most likely got trained in Israel. I saw a lot of stuff like this in 2009-10 when I was waking up to white genocide. I was already woke to it, and online people like Pamela Geller were trying to steer me against the Muslims and say we need a war with the Muslims. And I don't want America or Europe or Australia to be replaced and ethnically cleansed, but I'm not going to blame the replacement population that the Jews desperately need us to be fighting against now if they wish to remain in power. Jew naming is at an all-time high. Pressure on white people is at an all-time high. Pressure on the Syrians and the Palestinians, it's at an all-time high. And they need us venting that on each other instead of focusing on the main thing. Who's displacing all of these people from their homes they're indigenous to in the Middle East? These Arabs are good people. They want a safe home in the Middle East. They want their goddamn countries back. The Syrians want a secure country. The Palestinians want Palestine back, and a lot of them are Christian, by the way. And what the Jews need, and they've put in papers ever since the 70s, is the plan was to cause human waves to go into Europe and then get them to kill the whites. And the whites then now fighting back against the Muslims when it looks like Muslims are doing terror attacks in Europe gets them exactly what they want, because guess who's got an just inexhaustible supply of human waves of young men that can keep on falling into place in Europe, taking the place of casualties. Yeah, and guess who's going to make sure they get there, just like they made sure ISIS stayed resupplied. They need to turn Europe into Lebanon so that they can continue to just pump everyone that they're displacing from the Middle East there. This guy in New Zealand, I don't care what the hell Andrew Anglin says, this guy in New Zealand was most likely Mossad connected. You don't spend 2 weeks training in Israel and then go on this perfectly choreographed with the GoPro attack with the weapons he went. No. I smell Jews. I smell Jews. And you know what? I smelled Jews in the 1983 Beirut, Lebanon barracks attack, and I was right. Turns out some useful idiots got sent in there with a bomb to the U.S. Marine Corps barracks in 1983. And guess who told the Americans, Marines, not to have an outer perimeter, that the Israelis would take care of it? The Israelis promised the United States that they would be the outer perimeter, the outer perimeter around the Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, 1983. Guess who evaporated and provided no resistance to the van that just drove through, just waved them through, abandoned their post? Jews. And by the time the Marines that were the inner perimeter, who were only useful against small arms fire, because at that point they're too close to stop explosives because they're already in range, these guys were sitting ducks. If you're in the Marine Corps, if you're in the Air Force, if you're in the Navy, do not trust any Jews. They're most likely connected and have loyalty to Israel. Do not trust Jews. If you're in the military and you're deployed somewhere and the Israelis say that, oh, this is a super vulnerable target we've got you in, let us take care of the outer perimeter of security, don't do it. The Jews are the ones that got all those Marines killed in 1983. The point I'm making is they wanted Reagan to declare all-out war on Hezbollah and commit massive troops and aerial bombardments in Lebanon. Now, as big as a Shabbos Goy as Reagan was, he didn't do it because public opinion wouldn't let him. And that's what we need to do, is get public opinion to say, no, I smell a Jew. There's a terrorist attack. The first people you should be looking to point their finger at are the Jews, the Israelis. If you don't believe me, talk to Lebanese. Talk to Syrians. Talk to the people that have been fighting against the proxy forces and useful idiots of Israel. A lot of the Mujahideen and a lot of the Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood guys, a lot of those founding members were Jews that pretended to convert to Islam. And then they became the perfect Hollywood-style terrorists, sending all sorts of home videos from bin Laden in a cave until we couldn't find for over a decade. No. We're not dumb. We're waking up, and we're not going back to sleep. If you see someone like Andrew Anglin pushing war with Islam shit, he's working for the Jews. Period. The young men out there, do not lose sight of who the replacers are. The replacements are going to happen. If they don't use Arabs, they're going to use someone else. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the replacers. Vote for me in 2020. Have you printed up your little 2020 yard sign yet? Are you trying to organize a hall for me to speak at? I have been studying these Jews, and I can write speeches, and I've been practicing reading books aloud. So if books I've never read before I'm able to read aloud now, I can write, or if I get help with speeches, I'll read them a few times and then give them publicly. We're going to the Marine Corps bases. After I sell my boat and get an RV, we're going to 29 Palms Marine Corps Base down in Southern California. And then I'm going to hit all the bases in California. I'm going to set up my RV with 60-inch or 72-inch low-cost LED televisions on the side of it, and I'm going to drop red pills. I'm going to wake the military up, because I think the Jews are trying to start trouble. In Europe, in the United States, in Australia, New Zealand, they want all-out conflict with Islam. They want us focused on the symptom of the problem, and that is Jewish control. Now is the time to reach out to Syrian nationalists. Now is the time to make an Iranian friend. Now is the time to find a Berber or someone from North Africa and say, I know what the Jews have done to your countries and we're not letting them do it here. Find a Maronite Christian from Lebanon. They'll back up what I'm saying 100%. A lot of them have the name Fadi. That's a very popular name for Arabs from Lebanon, including the Maronite Christians. Seek out Armenians, Assyrians, people who have been targeted by Jewish proxy forces, people who have witnessed the Jews instigating civil wars in their countries. The Jews want to Ukraine. The Jews want to Ukraine. They want to Lebanon, every country in Europe. Be very wary. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to come out to be a Muslim it's that the story's going to come out to say it was a Muslim in Paris, but what I'm saying is stuff like that's going to start happening just like it happened in Lebanon, just like they do this stuff in Palestine, just like they did it in Syria. It's always the Jews using proxy forces. And the French were just too focused on Macron, too focused on the Jew bankers. They were dropping banners from bridges naming Jewish bankers, calling Macron a whore of the Jews. And now if they can stir the people up into a frenzy against Muslims like they did Americans in 2001 over in France, it's the end of the current iteration of trying to remove Jews from power in France, which don't be mistaken, the Yellow Jackets are an attempt to restore sovereignty to France. They are an attempt to remove the Jews from power and to stop the Jewish banks from parasitizing and holding open the doors to foreign invasion. Be awake, be aware, and do not be deceived. And get those little 2020 yard signs printed up and stuck on some stakes in the yard. We're going to win. We're going to win all of our countries back from these Jewish terrorists. God